What's up guys, I'm Jads, I stream on Twitch, and in this video I'm going to give an overview of the relatively new colony sim, Going Medieval, which I'm sure a lot of you have seen on Steam if you're into colony sims. Now this game's been called a 3D Rimworld, but after playing it some 60 odd hours I have to disagree. A lot of the elements of the UI are super similar to Rimworld, making it super quick to pick up if you're familiar with Rimworld already, but the game feels distinctly different and has its own personality. Now at the end of the video, I'm going to take a look at the roadmap for what's coming to the game, so if you're interested in that, make sure to stick around until the end. Let's get started. You start by picking your difficulty. As of right now, you cannot change the difficulty once your game has started, so choose wisely. Then you choose your starting condition similar to the starting scenario window on Rimworld. A new life is their standard one with 3 settlers. You then get to name your colony and design your colony heraldry, basically your flag. This is a fun feature to mess with. I could spend like 20 minutes on this alone. Then you pick your map tile. There are currently no biomes in the game. You can only pick a valley, hillside, or mountain, and it's all the same kind of temperate biome. You can change your world seed down here, but you will still only get to pick from those 3 types of map. Then you pick your people. It's the same idea as Rimworld here, with the stars indicating passion in a certain topic instead of little flames. Down here are the traits and the background. I highly recommend hovering over these and reading all the descriptions and the details because they are so well done and pretty much always hilarious. And if you're not happy with any of these, you just hit randomize for a new settler until you have a group that you're satisfied with. Then you're done and you're ready to get in-game. So having just arrived in your colony, let's take a look at the map. It's a little Minecrafty graphically, but I'm into it, and I think the graphics are so cute. First, I want to go over the UI. In the top right, you can view a log of events that have happened in your colony or search the almanac for help. It also tells you how many days you've been here, as well as the temperature, which is going to be a very, very important thing to keep an eye on later. On the left, you can quickly view your settler skills by just hovering over them. The jobs menu at the top might look awfully familiar to some of you, so fortunately that should be a pretty quick learn for anyone who's played Rimworld before. We also have a schedule tab, another bit of familiarity there, and then the manage tab where you can set weapon type, shields, armor, clothes, allowed food, and what stimulants they're allowed to consume. There aren't many options, so it's basically just alcohol in this game. What I love about this feature is that once you set the weapon type, your pawns will auto-equip those weapons. We'll look at the research tab in a bit, but the region tab here just shows you a map of nearby colonies. You can't travel to them or trade with them yet in early access though, but that is something that is coming on the roadmap. In the bottom right corner, we have our orders that we can give. Chop, cut plants, deconstruct, harvest, hunt, and so forth. And we're gonna use this allow order to just allow all of this forbidden stuff. Now, in the bottom left, we have basically the Going Medieval version of an architect tab. The first button is buildings. You can expand these options with research, but not too extensively. I haven't researched brick making yet or stone cutting, so I'm just going to build out of wood and lay my blueprint for my first little room. My settlers have started working on it. It's hard not to call them pawns. So while they build, I want to look at this little pile of stuff. We've got ale, which most of your settlers need some sort of alcohol to maintain their mood. We have some weapons, linen, cabbage, mechanical parts, and these things called chronicles, which we will talk about more a little bit later. Let's look at colonist needs. You'll just click on them. You can explore these tabs, but these last 3 will be the most important as they show you the colonist needs, mood, and health. So let's pop a thatched roof on this structure, and I'm actually going to add some windows in as well to make it look a little better. And you can set these to either be open or closed, which does help regulate temperature depending on the season. Now, inarguably, the best thing about this game is that it has Z levels. I'm currently viewing layer 16 out of 16, which means I'm viewing my colony from the very top layer. You can see that the ground layer where I decided to build is on around layer 6 or so, and that'll change depending on the elevation of where you're actually building. I can go down below 6 and look underground as well. I prefer to just view from the top layer when I'm above ground, and then I just use this hide roof option to see inside my buildings. Like in many building games, you can create a specific type of room by putting specific items in it, and this will give you a buff. There's this room overlay here that shows us the different room types and requirements for each. For example, right now there's a gray overlay on this room as it's just a spare room with nothing in here. To make it into a kitchen, for example, I'd need to add a stove, 2 wall pottery shelves, a butchering table, and I wouldn't be allowed to have any of these other types of items in the room. You don't need a kitchen to prepare food. You can put all your furniture and production stations in one giant room if you want, but food prepared in a kitchen will get a sizable production speed boost. And likewise, other types of work done in other types of specialized rooms will also get a boost. So now that we have our room, I'm going to put down some furniture for my settlers. You start with just the option for hay beds, but you can research more furniture later on. I'm going to build another structure next door, and this one is going to be 2 stories. You can put stairs in and then build your second floor by dragging floor over the entire first level. Now, floor does need something underneath it to support it or to be within a certain distance from a support structure, and you can make this distance greater by putting in wooden support beams, which is something that we will unlock in our research tab in a bit. Now that we have our second floor done, I'm going to go to our zone tab and add a stockpile zone. Much like in Rimworld, you can set what to keep in each. However, there is no priority option on the stockpiles, which in my opinion is a small thing that the game could add to massively impact the storage system in a positive way. I really do hope that the devs add that. Now my settlers are hauling this stuff, and we can see that my inventory is beginning to populate on the right hand side up in the corner. I'm just going to wall this level in to protect my stuff from the elements. So now that we have an upstairs, I'm going to use the layer buttons to kind of tap down and view my bottom floor again, and I want to get going with some research. So I can find my research bench under the production tab, just like in Rimworld, and set that up. Once you have that built, you can access the research tab up here. So the way research works in Going Medieval is a little different. Rather than taking time at the bench to research a certain topic, you use the bench to produce 3 different knowledge items: chronicles, textbooks, and theses. These kind of act as a knowledge currency, which you then use to unlock different research. Unlocking research does not actually consume the items though, so what that means is you'll need a giant storage room to keep all your chronicles, textbooks, and theses in by Late Colony, because you will have hundreds of each. For example, to unlock architecture, which gives me the wooden beam option that I'm going to need to build bigger structures, I need 15 chronicles. I already have 25 from my initial resource stash. As soon as I click unlock, we can see that 15 of my chronicles switch from available to allocated. They haven't gone anywhere, they're still in the stockpile. They just have been filled up with the architecture knowledge, so I can't use them on anything else. I really want to unlock agriculture next so that I can start planting crops, but you can see I don't quite have enough available chronicles now. You produce more chronicles at the research bench by creating a production bill at it, conveniently very similar to the bills in Rimworld as well. Now my little settler has rushed over and is beginning to produce more chronicles for me. Something you will need very soon after settling is underground food storage. It's basically the only way to store food without it going bad immediately. Later in the game, you can preserve food via pickling, smoking, and packaging, but we haven't unlocked any of that in this colony yet. I'm going to mine out a storage basement over here. While my settlers are working on that, I get a little pop-up alert to tell me that I now have enough available chronicles to unlock another piece of research, so let's do agriculture. So I've got that unlocked, so now to place a growing zone, you'll just go to zones and then select the one that you want. You will need to brew alcohol to keep your settlers happy, so I'm going to do a couple vegetables and then red currant shrubs, which can be used to make rough wine. So while my settlers are working on that, here are some of the other things you can add to your colony. You can unlock more decorative items, but for now, let's do a banner. And then you also start off with some security structures already researched, merlins and simple stick traps, which don't go off like 75% of the time, so it's definitely worth it to research more advanced traps sooner rather than later. My colony is getting quite low on food, so while we wait for our vegetables to grow, we're going to go hunt some deer. There are currently only 3 types of animals in this game: deer, wolves, and hare. You can select animals to be hunted just by clicking on them and then picking hunt, or just using the hunt order and dragging it over, a huge area of your map. Oh my god, the settler sucks at this, so I'm going to leave her to that. You're going to need a butchering table, which should ideally be in a kitchen, but I'm just going to toss it here for now. You'll also need a campfire to cook at until you research a hearth. Once built, you'll have to set butchering and cooking bills at each. So in the background, you can see my settlers have begun constructing a perimeter wall. This is essential in this game. I'd much rather make it out of stone blocks, but I want to get some defenses up, and clay is what we currently have the most of, so clay it is. Every so often, you will get this new settler event, and this is currently the only way to gain settlers. It tells you a little backstory, and you have the option to ignore them or accept them into your settlement. If you accept them, you will get raided about 1 day after they join. You can check out the settlers' skills in advance though, as well as the estimated size of the impending raid by hovering over these 2 exclamation point icons. We're going to help him, obviously. So now that I've accepted him, up here we have a little countdown until the raid gets to me. In the meantime, I'll have my settlers continue working on their perimeter wall. I'm also going to build some stairs up to it so that my archer can come stand on the wall and shoot down at the raiders. So my time's up, the raid is here, and I have one last chance to surrender our new settler back to them to avoid being raided. I'm refusing, obviously. Here's our first little raid. It looks like all melee, so it should be a cakewalk to beat as long as all my colonists do have weapons. I'm going to draft my archer and place her up on the wall, and then draft everyone else and have them hang out around here. Now ideally you would have mostly archers and guard towers or a wider perimeter wall. You wouldn't even need your melee folks to stand out in front like this, you could just pick everyone off from a distance. That's really all the strategy that you need for raids in this game, but they are still very satisfying. So I do really enjoy watching the combat in this game. Everyone's just using their weapons automatically here. Once you draft them, you don't need to tell them who to attack. So we won this raid pretty quickly, and it gives you a little summary of who did the most damage. Unfortunately, you cannot yet take prisoners in the game, so there's no benefit to leaving any survivors. Meanwhile, our basement is finally mostly carved out. I'm going to use a wooden beam to add extra support for the floor, and it's also important to add a structure with a door around the entrance to your basement to keep the temperature regulated. You can see in the top right corner, the temperature inside my basement is now about 20 degrees cooler than it is outside. Unfortunately, this is around the most you can actually cool it, so it's imperative that you research food preservation as quickly as possible. The last new structure I'm going to build in this sample colony is a workshop, and I'll just put my brewery in here as well. I like to disallow red currant as a cooking ingredient so that it's always used to produce rough wine instead, and my settlers never run out of drink. So this is a basic starting settlement here. You can build much more extravagant bases, but in terms of game mechanics, this is the gist of it. Once you get a colony set up and running efficiently, you can focus on building whatever sort of castle you envision, getting nice furniture, weapons, and clothes, making plate armor, and so forth. This is my longest running settlement in the game, with about 50 hours in it, or about 6 in-game years. As for whether or not going medieval is worth it while still in early access, that really depends on how much $25 means to you personally. I would say it's worth it because the building possibilities are endless, and I love this sort of game. The game is lacking a lot in terms of settler behavior, relationships, animals, and interaction with other factions, but if we look at the roadmap, we can see that the devs are planning on adding trading, caravans, social interactions, the ability to take prisoners, animal husbandry, more weapons, and a ton more. The game is already so enjoyable from just a building point of view, so I really think it's going to be a slam dunk once the roadmap gets filled out. If you've played this game, I'd love to hear your thoughts below, and if you'd be interested in a detailed tutorial or a tips and tricks video on how to build a strong settlement, let me know in the comments. Thanks so much for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe. I'll catch you next time.